Well, hello, everybody. This is Dottie Berry, and I am CEO of Training to Transform Global Enterprises. I'm a consultant, a coach, a trainer, and a speaker, and I am delighted tonight to have as my guest in our Conscious Creator Mentoring Network, Mr. Dan O'Donnell. And, Dan, I'm kind of known as the Google Hangout maven, but you, my friend, are known as Mr. Positive. How do you like that?
I'll take it. Yeah, I've been called far worse.
Oh my goodness. Well, it's interesting, Dan. You and I kind of go back, and here we are, way across the world from each other now. But let me just give Dan a proper introduction because he deserves it. I live in Blaine, Washington, for those of you who are on here live or who might watch this later, and that's in the Pacific Northwest of the United States. Now,
Go
about
border rights.
what's that?
Go border rights.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, that's about 18 miles from Bellingham, Washington. Now, some of you may be saying, isn't that where Hillary Swank's from? And we're going to go, yeah, it is. But guess what? Dan O'Donnell is from Bellingham as well. And one of these days, Dan, I know that you're going to be a household name as well known as Hillary Swank because let's face it, you had 800,000 people in your positive atmosphere Facebook group. That's phenomenal. How did that happen, first of all?
A lot of people ask me that, and I wish I could give you a more exciting answer, but it was, how many years is it now? 7 years of a lot of time sitting in a chair and just working, just grinding. It's just practice and putting in the effort. And of course, the prerequisite is that you put up good content. That's kind of a given, right? But we've been doing it for a long time, and it's grown over time. So, we learned some little tricks and hacks and things to make it easier, but really it's just the time and the effort.
Yeah. Well, I think, the bottom line is you got to have something that is of interest to people. And I think, then one of the great things that we're going to be talking about is you've created what's called the Better Me game. And we're going to kind of go through how that came about. But I would say a foundational piece just for you is this positive type of atmosphere and what you try to create for people, because you're always being at the foundational level of helping people be better. I know I want to share with how I met Dan. We were both into real estate investing, and so we met there many years ago. And, we've all had our paths since then. Dan went on to have the Bellingham flea market. Imagine that. That's an interesting story in and of itself. But we're here tonight more to talk about the Better Me game. But I kind of wanted to give some background. And right now, the time that we're doing this live hangout is actually started at 9 p.m. Pacific time. But Dan is actually in Thailand. I have a great love for Thailand, Dan. I was actually there when 9/11 happened here in the U.S. and I've always wanted to come back. So I hope you've got a standing invitation for me.
Absolutely. I love it here too, and it would be great if you guys ever end up in Thailand. Definitely let me know.
Okay, sounds great. Well, let's just go forward here. I want people to understand the story behind what you did, because back in 2005 and 6, we went around the United States, 2 women and a poodle, for a year in a 13-foot trailer. Over 50,000 miles, just really with the intention of engaging hearts and minds and connecting with people and transcending differences that separate us. So I know there's a story, and we always say you can't hate someone whose story you know, because lots of times there's differences with people. But what's the story behind the Better Me game?
Well, there's kind of a theme behind everything I do, and I actually see you doing, your mission is very similar, I think, is that I believe that if you connect people who are on a similar wavelength, they will help support each other, encourage each other, inspire each other, and really, so what I'm trying to do with the Better Me game, with the Positive Thinking Facebook page you mentioned, positiveatmosphere.com, all of that is to get people together who want to do something and are trying to better themselves and want to help other people be better as well. So the game is one more way to do that, and it's that domino effect. It came about as an idea originally when I was talking to a member of positiveatmosphere.com, a friend of mine, and the idea of a personal development or self-improvement board game came up, and we both thought it was very strange that there really wasn't one. You know, there are some games centered around specific things like forgiveness that I've come across. You know, financial games like cash flow, you know, Robert Kiyosaki's creation, things like that. But I wanted one that would help people in all areas. And when we were having this conversation, I just thought, man, there has to be a need for that. You know, there wasn't really a model to follow, but I knew I would want to play it. And this friend I was talking to, she wanted to play it if it existed, but it didn't. So I thought, you know, there's the market research right there. And every time I mentioned it to people, they said, I'd play that. Yeah, that's a great idea. I wish I had one. You know, and I kind of worded it like, you know, you've played cash flow, right? Most of my friends have. So what if it was like cash flow, but for all areas of your life, you know, and it brought people together? And so long story short, it sat in a Google document from about maybe 2009 until late 2013, which a lot of things I've done in the past, they have this kind of gestation period, right? But it sat there for 4 years on a Google Doc, which I really recommend. Get a Google Doc and call it ideas, and put everything there, because you know, you can drop your notebook off a bridge and you can lose the little note that you take to the wall, but I trust Google with my ideas. So anyway, at one point in 2013, I was looking through the idea doc, and it seemed like I had a little bit of time. I was kind of looking for something new, and it really jumped off the page as the best idea there that I thought could help the most people, that I would have the most fun doing. So that's when I actually started. You know, I busted out 5 different colors of highlighters and a Sharpie, and took a big piece of you know, like presentation paper, the grid paper that you use in meetings, and just started drawing concepts. And you know, it really, the rough draft came about pretty quickly, and I was playing a game with a good friend of mine maybe a week later.
Gosh, that's amazing. So you go from sitting there for 4 years till boom, a week later. And then the part of this that's so interesting to me is the connecting with people, and you know, just doing that in a more authentic way is really important to both of us. But what I want to point out to people is the conscious creation of what you're doing, because right now you're a guest on our Conscious Creator Mentoring Network, and we are really creating a platform for people to spread their message across the world, because we know that you as yourself, I mean, you got a lot of friends, no doubt about it. 800,000 people in that Facebook group, no doubt about it. But you know what? The more we can leverage together, the more we can help you spread the word about the Better Me game. And I think it's interesting that there was nothing like that. But I think sometimes in our society, Dan, we think, okay, you got to learn how to do your money better. You got to learn how to forgive better. But it's really challenging sometimes for people to say, I'm really going to work on being a better me. You know, do you find that to be true? I mean,
well, you know, I know you have a coaching background in sports, right? I mean, and at University of Kentucky, I think, right?
Yep, exactly. Good
which
memory.
is a heck of a program. And so I've coached youth football and been involved in sports, you know, through my college life and stuff. And it's one thing to read a book about something, right? Like if you want to learn how to swim, you don't go read a book about it.
Yeah.
You know, it's okay to read a book about it. That's not a bad idea, but it's not all of it. You know, you need to get around other people that know how to do it better than you, that are willing to help you along the way, to coach you, to show you, or at least a training buddy, you know, somebody to go shoot hoops with. You know, you don't just go and, you know, if you want to work on passing, it's better to have somebody to pass to than throwing the ball up against the wall, right? So I mean, you know, you're putting together this. It's like you're forming an open gym. Hey, you want to get better at being a person? Come to my open gym. You know, Coach Dottie. So I believe in that concept of getting people together, and not only will they develop skills, but if anything gets hard, you're around other people that have been in a hard spot, and they go, you know what, I got through mine, and you see examples of people who made it past the point where you're stuck. And it's inspiring and keeps you going at that point where you might have quit on your own. You know, if you're trying to work on your three-pointer by yourself and there's nobody around and you don't think you're very good at it, it can get frustrating. But if there's somebody that says, oh, look, you know, you need to move your backhand, you're holding the side of the basketball, you need to get that hand behind it, you know, like little tiny things like that from somebody with experience can totally change your program, you know. So, yeah, what you're doing here is awesome, bringing people together to share ideas, and I think we're on the same wavelength there.
Yeah, you know, it's so true. I mean, I did a training last night. Every Tuesday night, I do a big training for a marketing system called Power Lead System. And what I was training on last night was the importance of mentors in a team. Because if you ask any successful person, just about the number one thing that they will cite as having helped them reach that level of success is that they had great mentors and they had a great team around them. And I've said this 1,000 times, Dan, but when I hear people say, oh, I pulled myself up by my bootstraps, I go, oh my goodness, I think you forget that somebody made the boots and somebody made the straps. I don't do anything on my own. And furthermore, even if I could, Dan, I don't want to. I want to, connect with people. I want to engage with them. I want to collaborate. I want to innovate. And I want to just get our unique collective talents together and form these tremendous synergistic partnerships. And that's what I see you doing. There you are in Thailand. You're creating mastermind groups. Tell me, bud, how many mastermind groups you got going?
We actually just launched that, and so we just did the first one 2 days ago. We're taking applications for more, and that is showing a lot of promise. I think that there's really a need there. With a bare minimum, a few posts on the Facebook page, we launched the first group, no problem. So we're just looking at the strategy to actually put a marketing campaign out there. I anticipate that thing growing because with a mastermind group, especially so far, a lot of self-employed or freelancers and people like that are coming to us because they understand the power of accountability, but they might not have a manager above them to meet with and to help keep them on track. So they're smart enough to go, hey, I need to seek that from the outside to get around a group of people who can identify and help me. So the mastermind thing, and on a regular basis, checking in. What are you going to do by next Tuesday? And it's written down, and it's like you don't want to be the kid that shows up for class not having done your homework, because we're going to ask for your homework. Part of the group is, how did it go on your goals from last week? How'd it go? Tell us. And everybody knows there's going to be that question. So it's that I think of it as a high five when you deserve it and a kick in the ass when you need it.
Hey, that's great. Well, it's kind of like this. If I'm into archery, there's no way I want to go and do archery with somebody who says, hey, I got these arrows, this bow, and I go, where's the target? And they go, oh, we don't use targets. Holy Moses. You know what I'm saying? That's when some really bad things can happen. We better have a target we're shooting at, because I'm afraid I'm going to get shot if there's not a target, we're shooting at. And that's kind of dangerous, and I think that's what people do a lot of times in relationship or in business or whatever they're doing. Being thinking, what is it I want to have happen? What is my outcome? And yet, the interesting thing is not to get attached to a specific outcome. I've seen people that do that, and I always say, hey, sometimes you have to know what your plan is, but you also have to sort of let go of it. When we did the year-long journey, people said, do you have goals and all? And I go, yeah, go on the website and look at that. And I said, but we do this unattached to a specific outcome. And they'd say, what? That's the craziest thing I've ever heard of. And I said, well, what happens when you get too attached to something and you don't get your way? And they go, well, I get mad and angry and disappointed. And I said, yeah, and you get stuck, don't you? So, there's this balance between it, but you do have to have something you're just absolutely shooting for and have some accountability. And it's okay to say, I didn't hit the target. I missed it. Now I got to regroup. So how do you deal with people when that happens?
Well, I think you had the 13-foot trailer, 2 women and a poodle. If you come up, you've got your route marked out on your map. You take your highlighter or whatever. Well, if you come up to a bridge that's out, are you going to get out and start yelling and screaming? Oh, the bridge is out. This bridge should not be out. I demand this bridge gets rebuilt immediately. Like not far from you in Mount Vernon, Washington, a big old bridge fell down a few years ago, and nobody was standing there yelling at the bridge, right? You just go, okay, where's the detour? Where do I go? Oh, look at the map. There it is. Oh, just hang a right and a left, and it's going to take 10 minutes longer, but I'm still going to get there. Okay, you adjust. It's there's a concept I really like called the corridor effect. I don't know if you've heard of that. I'm sure it's called different things. The corridor effect.
Oh no, lay it on us.
I really like it. I first heard about it from some entrepreneurs talking about it. So in the beginning, you say, okay, imagine standing in like a big school or a hospital or something with a long corridor, right? and you're looking at the end of the corridor, and you can see it clearly, and you go, that's my goal, that's where I'm going, to that door at the end of the corridor. That's success, whatever that is in this project, right? And so you start walking because you know that's your destination, and one foot in front of the other. We're getting there. Next step. You know, you maybe have to walk around a little garbage can or something now and then, but pretty much you're going straight. And then, a 50 feet, say, down the corridor, oh, you come to an intersection that you didn't even realize there was an intersection there, because back at the beginning of the corridor, you couldn't really see it. But you look off to your right, and, you see 3 different doors down that corridor. You look off to your left, and you see, 4 different doors down that way. So now it's like, oh, my perspective and my awareness has changed. Is that door that I'm pointed at still the one I want to go to? Because other opportunities have come up, right? And I think it's great to have your destination in mind, but like you say, along the way, things change, life happens. I tend to think of life, and I'm different on this than other people. I see a lot of different approaches to goals, but I think of life a lot more like dodgeball than a chess game. In chess, you're thinking 3 or 4 steps ahead, and it's not bad to think ahead, but like you said, you can't really get attached to those moves if the other player or life makes a move you didn't expect. Things change. So in dodgeball, you don't know who's going to throw a ball at your head or whatever, but when you see the ball, you duck or you catch it, and then when you see somebody standing there, you throw the ball. It's just you react to what's your current environment. So yeah, I'm with you on that. Not getting too attached to every little detail, and rolling with punches, right?
Well, it makes it a lot more fun, I can tell you, because if we hadn't had that about 2 weeks into the journey, we would have quit and turned back around. And, sometimes you don't even know where things are going to come from. I know when we first got this idea of doing this year-long journey, like, let's get out there and connect with people, we didn't even have a vehicle. We didn't even know how we were going to do it. But when our intention was so clear, things started coming to us. People started coming to us saying, hey, we've got this purple Suburban. Hey, we've got this 13-foot trailer. Yeah, it needs a little work. And, all of a sudden, what you needed is right there for you. And it sounds like, in some ways, with the Better Me game, this gestation period that was going on, all of a sudden, there it was, and in that moment, a week later, you started it. Now, let me just show people real quick. I've got my actual real game here. I have the cards, I've got the board. Oh my goodness, I got this nice board that I can fold out here. But I'm going to tell you something. I didn't have that the first time we played, so I'm just kind of letting people see what you get here. And it's a wonderful game. Now, right now, that hasn't gone into mass production, so it's $99. But you know what? I'm worth that because I'm a better me. That's a great value to me. And I know you're going to be mass producing that in the future, and we know what happens with that. The price comes down. However, there is an online game, and I'm going to screen share here in a minute, let you talk people through this a little bit. But I want to share real quickly my personal experience of what happened. I thought this was so fascinating. We had people here at Christmas. I contacted you, Dean. I said, hey, we're going to play the Better Me game. And I kind of was so excited about it, so we're reading through, kind of how you do it. And it got to this part about accountability. And, man, the resistance went up immediately. And I think the reason that happened is we were just there being social. You know what I'm saying? Sharing some food, glass of wine together, having a good time. And everybody's busy in life. And sometimes one more thing to be accountable for was not what they were looking for. Right. To be quite honest. If you're seeking out an accountability group, that's different. But here's what they said that I think was so important. They said, can we just do it and not do the accountability part? But I said, oh, absolutely. They said, well, we trust you, and so let's do it. And here's what happened, Dan. Everybody, because of the questions on these cards, and like I said, it was the online version, those questions caused everybody to dive deep. And 2 of these people had never met before the day before. And the conversation had been good, but I'm going to tell you what. In the hour and a half that we, almost 2 hours that we played the game, those 2 people knew each other much better than they had in the 24 hours before, and they knew us better. Is that your experience of what's happening?
It is, yeah, and it's awesome to have you say that because, of course, I'm going to say that, right? But I've had that feedback from so many people, and when I was creating the game, I anticipated the accountability being the majority of the benefit for people,
Yeah.
and then I did anticipate some interesting conversations. Of course, I wrote cards hoping that would happen, but it really, I would say maybe two-thirds of the feedback I get is people talking about the conversations
Yeah.
and how well they got to know people. Even like you said, sometimes it's people that are just meeting, which I've had that experience with a lot of people too. I just meet people, and in an hour, I feel like I've known them for a year. And
Yeah.
then the opposite can be true too. Somebody you've known your whole life, but you learn things about them that you've never heard before because this stuff doesn't typically come up. You know, it's not the day-to-day conversation you normally would have. So yeah, I've had most people tell me that the conversations were awesome. One guy in particular, he calls it guilt-free time on the mic, and something I've learned about people being here in Thailand, he's English, and he told me culturally, he's like, we don't really do that. We don't really. They're kind of like the John Wayne, like they don't open up and talk to strangers about vulnerabilities or hopes and dreams and things. And he said, this is cool because it kind of like makes me do it. It's my excuse to get to do it. Like he wants to do it. He enjoys doing it, but the card gives him the reason to do it. So, and one more detail too. Don't be mad at me, but the price is now more like it's $54.99, I think, right now. Which
Oh my goodness! I guess you owe me a refund right now.
I know.
No, I
so
was
it's actually that's my cost right now. We're doing it's a one-off. So when you order one gets printed. So it's very expensive that way. So the $55 is my actual cost. I don't make a penny. And I think you're about to show people the free version, which is online. So right now, honestly, it doesn't matter to me. If you buy the board, that's awesome, and I think the board is a really cool thing to have. But if you don't have $55, you can play the free version, and you'll get a ton of benefit out of the free version just like buying it. So.
Well, I think, Dan, you're really onto something because, people asked us all the time, what did you learn after a year on the road? And I sort of distilled it, we did, finally, to this. I said, you know what? What we discovered is that people deeply, deeply want to connect, and they deeply want to make a difference in our world. And yet, the very thing they want to do, connect with one another, any of us at any time in our lives might put up walls that keep from happening the very thing that we want. And then we would turn around and say, so what do you think that's about? So I think the Better Me game allows people to take that diving deep. And, have you ever seen that game where you stack those blocks on top of each other? And you
like Jenga, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The name of it for a minute.
Right.
Well, you believe this is before I even knew about your game, but about 3 years ago, we looked at each other and we said, you know what? I mean, this is fun, but after a while, you're just stacking those things, and that's cool. So we wrote questions on them, but we didn't write all the questions. Every time somebody came over and we played together, we asked them if they would take 3 or 4 of those and write a question on it. So now when we placed those, we were asking questions. So we were actually having happen what you're doing with your game. It's kind of crazy, but we just thought, well, it'd be a lot more interesting if we could just kind of know each other in this process too. So let me actually, Dan, take people. This is why I got to get on my glasses now, because I'm going to screen share and actually take people over and show them the Better Me game. You can see that, right?
I think I will in a second. I see some. Yeah, there it is.
Okay. So I've got it taken them. Well, let me just, now I've got to actually go over to the site. Hang on one second. I've got it showing there now.
Right.
So as we come on here, and it is the bettermegame.com, talk to us a little bit about this and how it's set up, and I'll scroll it down for you.
Sure. So what you're looking at right now, obviously, there's at the very top, it says play free now. Click here. So that's all the cards are online for free. And all you need to do is print the board so that you have something to put on the table.
And we did that.
Yeah, what's that?
We did that. Yep, we printed our board.
And so you can use a coin or your ring or an earring or whatever for the player piece. It doesn't really matter. You just print off the board, and then you print off the player sheet, which is where you write down your commitments, what you're working on. So that's all you have to print, and then the cards are online because I didn't want people to have to print out 270 cards and then cut them out with scissors. I didn't think many people would actually do that. So the cards are online. And you know, I've had people tell me even on a road trip, they just pull out their smartphone and do the cards. You know, just like your Jenga blocks. If you're not in a place to play the game, you can still draw the cards and start up interesting conversations. So
Well,
that's
that's
all there.
what we did. We did it on our phones, and I
Yeah,
see right here that a lot of people are having fun playing it.
yeah.
And you see where you can check out the cards for free. But if you go back up here and you click right there, then it's going to take you. It's actually, I pulled it up. So here's the cards, you know, and you can do it on the computer. Like I said, we were doing it on our iPhones. But if I click right here, then it's going to bring up something. So
Yep.
talk to us a little bit about how these cards are used.
So there are a bunch of different types of cards. Some cards will ask you to just do something quickly or share a story quickly at the table. And then there are other cards. This one that you pulled up is more or less a game within the game. It's an exercise. I mean, the people watching can read it, but you're going to write down everything you see in 1 minute that is made of metal. So everybody is looking around and writing down everything they see as fast as they can, and whoever writes down the most gets a point for that. And that particular card, and there are a few others like it, you know, everything that's red, everything that's made of fabric, and it shows you, you know, like something that can be interesting is sometimes somebody's wearing, say, a yellow shirt, and they draw the card that says write down everything that's yellow. They write down everything in the room that's yellow except their own shirt, you know, and like there's a card, write down everything that's blue, and I probably saw that card come up 5 or 6 times with, you know, games of 5 or 6 people. So probably, you know, 30 people or so had done that card, that exercise, before anybody said so and so's eyes.
Wow.
You know. So what it shows us, the reason I put that card in there, and what I think some people, you know, people get different messages out of that card, but it shows you that what you see isn't necessarily reality. That's what you're seeing right now. But there could be more out there, or other people might see it a little bit differently, you know. Sometimes it's funny because people will be very restrictive, like if it's red and something is sort of a light red and they think, you know, that's almost pink, or yeah, I don't know if that counts, so they won't write it down, where the other person at the table will write down anything that's anywhere close to red. And if somebody says, if they're disagreed, you know, the other players say, no, that's not red. They say, yeah, that's fine, whatever. Why not try? Why not write it down, right? You see different personalities come out. And then, so that's one example. That's an exercise in the game. But a lot of the cards will ask you to commit to something later, and it's totally voluntary too. So like your friends that were hesitant about the accountability, you can tell them, you know, probably the most important rule in the game is that you can pass on any card. So if you don't want to go read a biography, or you don't want to cut down your caffeine intake, or whatever the card is asking you to do, you just say, oh, I'll pass on that one. You know, and the ones that really speak to you, that kind of light you up, then you choose to participate in those, you know. And some examples, I've added plants here in my apartment and on my balcony because there's a card about, you know, do you have plants in your surroundings? And I said, whoa, I don't. I have 0 plants, you know. And I'm the one who wrote the card, but I had to pull the card to realize it. And so I went out and went to the market and got a bunch of flowers and plants, you know. So it deals with all areas like that. And then, like you said, it brings up some really interesting conversations.
Well, Dan, one of the neat things was the resistance was so like just right there that I thought, even though it said that you could, you know, bypass it, I thought, you know, let's just remove that barrier. And then what I did, I hope you got those videos I sent you. The bad thing was that our camera ran out of memory at the end because we had a bunch of stuff on there. But I did get a couple of comments from them because I thought it's so profound, the shift that happened. I wanted to get the recording of how they felt before, you know, when the resistance was up, and how they enjoyed it after they just, you know, dived in and we removed that barrier that was going to be really major for them. So, you know, it's kind of like you talking about going down the corridor. Sometimes you just got to, well, in basketball, we always called it reading the defense. You know, look at what you're given and then, you know, make your choice. Don't go down the court saying, I'm going to drive down the court and no matter what, I'm going to do a layup. Because if you do that, you know you're probably going to get a charging foul. Yeah. So anyway, it's kind of interesting. It says tangible here. Let's talk about the different cards a little bit.
Yeah, so tangible, it's stuff, if you don't know what the word tangibles is. I didn't want to call it stuff. That sounded kind of weak. What is something in this space that you took for granted until this moment? So this card, I think people have said things, I'm in Thailand, so they'll say the air conditioning, it's 100 degrees outside and we're sitting in here comfortable and not sweating, so there are so many things in our space that often we take for granted. The refrigerator, I don't have to go hunting every day to eat. I can put stuff in the fridge or the freezer for a week or a month, right?
Yeah.
So gratitude is one of the biggest influencers on people's happiness. So this, is asking you to notice something and be grateful for something.
Yeah, so I just want to just show that you got all kinds of cards here: body, heart, people, fall forward. Anything you want to say specifically, maybe in regards to these categories?
I could have divvied up categories in other ways. That was kind of an interesting call, but these are the ones that I think made the most sense. And you'll see different people really have an affinity for certain categories, and it's cool. But it also, because the cards are pulled somewhat at random, you're rolling the dice, you end up working on all areas during a game. And so yeah, it tries, like I said, you've got the cash flow game to work on finances, which is awesome. But we're trying to spread it out and get you thinking about all areas of your life, because I believe that all these areas, even though they're separate categories in the game, they all spill into one another. If you draw a body card that helps you get better sleep, you'll wake up and have more energy and be in a better mood, which will help, the people category, which is your relationships. You'll be less irritable, you'll be nicer to people. And then that leads to the heart category, and then they all spill into one another.
Yeah, so it could be anything that comes up here. So, I think this is great how you've got the categories and all, and I'm going to come back over here. Is there anything I need to show before I take the screen share off?
Nothing that jumps out. There's testimonials on this site. People can check it out, see what people got out of it. There's a video showing you how to play, all that stuff. So just the people watching can dig into it more if they're interested. A bunch of info there. There's also, we have a Facebook group that I want to mention, which is Better Me Players Accountability and Connection. Okay. And there might be support.
Then I'll make sure that I go back in. Some of you you came to 247mentoring.com, and you're sitting there looking at some things down below where you can make comments, share that out socially, what's going on, because within 5 minutes of our live hangout, it'll be in the recorded version, and so you can invite people to come and watch this. But this is just something that we can really have here for people to understand more about what it means with the Better Me game. And I will go down there and I will put the link to the Facebook group, Dan, so that people can come back and see the recording. And also, here's the thing. This is something that I was starting beginning April 16th, actually, and here it is April 8th, but I kind of reached out to you and said, let's do this, and we did it at a different time than we'll normally be doing it because of you being in Thailand. But my goal is every Thursday to be bringing on people like yourself, conscious creators, who are really doing something unique in the world. So that hangout, it will change right there, but there will be a link to the recorded hangouts, and that'll shoot people over to a page. So Dan, you won't be lost. You'll be up here till the 16th of April, but then somebody else will jump into that spot, and then you'll be on the recorded page. But it'll be what we call our archives. And so one of the things I want to encourage people, if you know people who are coaches, trainers, anybody who's got a great idea out there, we want to help spread the word. Because then I'm not sure you even know, but you can actually become a mentor for no charge on our Conscious Creator Mentoring Network. And we will help spread the word about what you're doing, and it'll send links back to everything. Now, there are other ways for people who want to follow you to do that, and then they can sort of like an affiliate program, they can be, getting a little for sharing the love about Dan O'Donnell. So that's another story, but there's some, links down there people can check out. But the key thing is, this is about being a conscious creator and what people like Dan O'Donnell are doing. Dan, I'm going to mention one thing, I think, before the hangout started. We were talking about connecting, and my friend Cheryl Bassett, she actually started Kitchen Table Conversations. Yeah. And it was about families coming back together. And a funny story is, we were telling our friend in Greece, George Goutos, about it. And he was like shaking his head. He was going, you Americans are crazy. You got to have a game to come around the
Yeah.
table with each other. And he said, that's just the Greek way. And we said, well, you have to understand, Greece is small. And, of course, we do love that tradition in Greece. And I said, we do have it in America, but we've become so, in some ways, disconnected because of the size of the United States. We're really trying to come back together. And is that part of what you're trying to do, Dan?
Yeah, and actually, years ago, I read something. I mentioned it to you. There was a study, and I can't cite it right off the top of my head. I'm sure if you Google it, you can find it. But it was talking about. It was a study that was a few decades long, following connection. And how much connection people had or said they had. So if I remember right, the survey basically asked people how many close friends they had, and I think that's how they worded it. Close friends. It wasn't just friends or associates or anything like that. So the average number, this is kind of me trying to remember, but it was from, I think, the 70s or so, and they did it forward for 20 or 30 years, and over the time, they found the average dropped significantly, and it was only, if I remember right, the average was about 3 close friends when they first started the study. But by the end, it was 2. And so percentage-wise, that's a huge difference. And of course, that's the average, so that means a lot of people that would have said 2 later said 1, or if they had 4, they had 3. So what really hit home when I was reading that, I was thinking about my own neighborhood back in Bellingham.
Right.
And especially during the winter, it's rainy and windy and gray, and people come home, and the only time I would see my neighbors for 5 or 6 months is I would see their car come down the road. I'd see it out my sliding glass window, and then I would see them pull up to their garage, and I would see them reach up and hit the button on the visor. The garage door automatically opened up, they drove in, and then the door shut, and that was it. And I would see them again tomorrow in the same way. But literally, at some point, I would bump into them at the mailbox in the spring.
Yeah.
And and say, hey, what have you been doing for the last 4 months? You live 150 feet from me. It's been 4 months. So
Wow.
I think there is a need for ways to get out there, and there are lots of ways that people can do it, but they don't always do it. So I'm trying to just give them one more excuse to get together, see their friends, meet new people, and in a way that's different than talking about the game last night or the weather. Trying to get them into something deeper and more meaningful that they'll remember and learn from.
Yeah, I think, Dan, you're just dead on. I mean, it's just so true. And, I got to give kudos to Chris Crone, who is the actual founder of the Conscious Creator Mentoring Network, because Chris said, I mean, he's done phenomenal in real estate. He retired at the age of 26. How cool is that? But his wife finally said, hey, Chris, you got to start doing something. And so he started really helping people, I mean, because that's who he was. He just needed to take a little bit of break. But the guy is phenomenal. And he said, Dottie, I would not be where I'm at without my mentors. He was in college, and he was actually teaching people, how to, through educational courses, how to learn about real estate. But he said, that's not really where I learned it. He said, where I learned it? Really, it was because a mentor took me under the wing and taught me. He said, that's how I learned it. And he said, I have paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for mentors. And his goal, to be quite honest with you, is to make sure that the everyday person who doesn't have hundreds of thousands of dollars can have mentoring. So in our Conscious Creator Mentoring Network, people can come into it for $99 a month, and that might sound like, wow, that's a lot. But guess what? When they bring 3 people in, theirs is at no cost to them. So it's like everybody helping everybody. And the great thing about it too, Dan, is that when people purchase one of those, one is given away. So it's a pay it forward concept. We've got people with street businesses, that could have never afforded this, that are getting mentoring. I think that's phenomenal, So I hope that the people listening will just really realize, gosh, if you need mentoring, if you want to be a better me, then get Dan's game, either physically, get your own board and have it right here like I do with my own. Like he said, he's not making anything off you purchasing that, But if you can spread the word about the online game, again, for thebettermegame.com, and that is in a link right down below there as you have come into our 247mentoring.com hangout here, our live hangouts each week. So, Dan, as we close up, I want to ask you one thing. Where do you see this going? I said that you're going to be a household name, so it's going to happen. You know, Hillary Swank is not going to have anything on you. When they say, who are the famous people from Bellingham, Washington? They're going to say Dan O'Donnell.
Where I see it going, we are weeks away. We're giving all the files to the factory right now, the final artwork and all that. So this thing's going to be printed here in the next few weeks. Then it's going to get on a boat and make its way over to the United States and, you know, eventually other places as well. So we're just at that point where, you know, it's a seedling and it's about to go to Amazon, you know, and hopefully become a giant oak tree. And I think, you know, my mantra right now with this game is making millions, helping millions, because that's how you get there, right?
Hear it again.
Yeah, making millions, helping millions. It's like Zig Ziglar always said, you know, the way you get everything you want in life is if you'll help enough other people get what they want. And this thing, there's no lid on this, you know. I mean, this thing could sell for decades and decades, and it could go crazy and become, you know, like cash flow did. You know, I hope it does, because I think that sincerely, the more people out there playing it, the more people are going to take steps in their life and help other people. I believe in this 100%, that the more it's out there, the more it's going to change the world and change people's lives. So I really appreciate you letting me get on here and use your megaphone to tell people about it.
Oh,
and, you
absolutely,
know,
Dan.
I want to say something about your program, too, and the value of mentoring. I agree 100%. Mentors are huge. I've had them in a lot of different areas of my life. And, you know, if the $99 price point, that's a cup of coffee a day. So if you could talk to somebody who was a great mentor, would you buy them a cup of coffee every day to sit down and talk with them? Of course you would, you know. It's a small investment. You know, people go and spend tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars on college education. You know, education is valuable. You know, I mean, invest in yourself is the best place you can put money.
Well, you know what's interesting? Phil Lecter, who was with Rich Dad Poor Dad and was really responsible for getting his coaching program going and oversaw a lot of that, the cash flow game and all. I'm going to send him this link tonight, because we were just, you know, chatting a couple days ago, in fact. And I'm like, how have I not told Phil about the Better Me game yet? You know how sometimes something's right in front of you?
Yeah.
He's talking about the cash flow game. I'm going, dingo, Dottie. Get it out to Phil. He's going to love this, because, you know, I mean, he's a coach, obviously, and works with a lot of people, so I know he's going to love this. And, you know, like I want to tell Cheryl, hey, Cheryl, put about the Better Me game on your kitchen table conversations, because the more we help each other spread the word, the more powerful we come. And, you know, honestly, for Chris Crone, world peace is what he wants out of this. That, he says, as we all become conscious and consciously create, we can literally change the world and create world peace. And I know all of that resonates with you, so you're going to love meeting Chris. He's going to love meeting you. You know,
our tribes keep getting larger and larger, and when I hear pessimists talking about, oh, you know, there are all these conflicts and things going on, and of course some of that is going on, but when you look at, you know, take the United States as a small example, you know, how many tribes and warring factions was that? You know, I mean, even when the United States was starting, you know, a colony of England, you had the Spanish and, you know, the French, and everybody's fighting over territories and, you know, trying to ally with the local Indian tribes to beat each other and all that stuff. Fast forward now, you know, you add Alaska and Hawaii, it's all one thing. Puerto Rico's kind of on the cusp of that. You know, the European Union, people are coming together, and they're not thinking of, you know, our tribe of 50 people against your tribe of 60 people. You know, it's that consciousness is what it is. And it's the tribes are getting bigger, and the awareness that we are more the same than we are different is growing. And I think the more you connect people across oceans and imaginary lines on maps, which are borders, you know, the more we realize that, you know, we're all trying to feed our kids and to spend time with our friends, and, you know, we're really much more the same than we are different. So good on you for bringing people together, and I hope he hits that goal of world peace.
Absolutely, and I think that's so true, because, you know, here we are, you hear a lot about what you're talking about, but I'm going to tell you what, Dan, I run into more people every day that are thinking like you and I do. And the more we encourage people to think this way, uh, there's just tons of us. We just don't get enough media about the people
Yeah.
who are thinking this way, who really believe we can change the world. And I see this as a very transformative time, and I've never been as excited about life. I mean, I think we are on the cusp of some things that are so huge it's going to blow our minds over the next 10 years with what's going to happen. So
You know,
let's,
I'm
yeah,
sorry, I know you're trying to end it, but I think at some point people are going to look back on the people that were saying world peace isn't possible, no war, that's not possible. Well, people said the same thing about human flight, you know. Everybody thought, not everybody, most people, a lot of people, the establishment, the media, a lot of them thought that the Wright brothers were crazy, and countless other people that made huge advances, right? So someday let's look back and say, you remember when people thought that world peace was a silly idea,
and you know what? And it wasn't the Wright brothers who they thought was going to be the ones that did that flight.
Yeah.
There's a guy in New York, and he really wanted to be the kingpin. But his passion wasn't there like theirs. He wanted it because he wanted to be known. You know what I'm saying? He was educated. Most of the group with the Wright brothers, they were not, highly educated and those kind of book ways. And this guy just thought, oh, he was going to be in the same league with Alexander Graham Bell, and it was all about him. And when we make it about us, we lose that perspective, and people don't really want to listen to you anyway when it's all about you. So let's keep working together, Dan. I so honor the work that you're doing. I feel privileged that you came on to share some time with us tonight, and I just want to encourage people to go to the Better Me game and check it out, see what Dan's doing, see what we're doing with the Conscious Creator Mentoring Network. You owe it to yourself to get mentoring, and if you have something to offer, give some of what you're doing to that network. Get involved with us in any way that it works for you, and keep coming to our hangout. So thanks, Dan. I want you to know that you were the first official person for the Conscious Creator Mentoring Network in terms of these hangouts right here. So I really appreciate you being on here.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. And after the show, I want to learn more about what you're doing with the network too. I might get involved myself. So.
Well, I tell you what, you hang on a second. We'll stop the recording and we'll just chat just a moment.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Dan. Bye for now.